Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we are back with my main man Cop, and we're taking a look at Freehold, another beginner's Mythic Plus guide in the series that we've been making here. Hopefully this one is going to be really interesting because there's a lot of different things you can do in Freehold. So as always, Cop, what's your experience with Freehold?
I get lost a lot, and I don't understand why I'm supposed to talk to certain people at certain times.
Okay, so that's that's a good representation of some of the problems with Freehold. There's actually a lot of different routes you can take, but realistically, you're probably only ever going to see one taken up until Season 4. Maybe Season 4 is going to change that now with the new, whatever their lieutenant placements and how they're going to skip things. But we're going to go ahead and talk about the dungeon as a kind of a foundation and tell you guys everything you need to know and where I would recommend being very cautious, because even though this is commonly considered the easiest dungeon, there's a lot of things that you could do that might end up causing problems. So right out of the gate, you're going to see there's 3 packs here, very close to each other. And this is a really good opportunity to pull really big out of the gate. If you ever watch me play WoW and talk about 5-mans, you'll know that I want to get my big CDs on CD as fast as humanly possible in any key. You get a pre-pot, you get big CDs up, 3-minute CDs up, and even sometimes Bloodlust, and I feel like that's the best way to do the dungeon. If you know that about me, you would then be surprised to hear that I don't ever want to do this. I don't ever think this is a good idea. Number one, because the trash is very pesky. The enforcers, that mob there is going to be throwing the tank around a lot. The mastiffs, the little dogs there, they're going to enrage. The crack shots, they're going to do, they're basically a ranged only mob. You're going to be hard pressed to keep them close to the other mobs. And I think it's the bone saws are going to try to heal. So between, the 5 different mob types here, there's really only one that's just going to be a standard mob. Everything else is kind of complicated. So as the tank, I don't really like doing this ever. But the one reason that you need to know that you can do it is because there's a lot of times where on the Void Emissary, actually this week, well, it was last week. It's no longer the Void Emissary. But anyway, when it's Void Emissary week, like out of the 3, the purple marker is where there's a Void Emissary. So the way you would circumvent doing this is with a rogue. Typically, you're going to bring a rogue to every single instance of this instance, and you're going to just skip the start here. Basically, what you do is you would skip from here all the way up to Sky Captain's area, the first boss, and you do that very easily. You just mount up, 3, 2, 1, dungeon starts, mount up, run all the way up there. The RP of the first boss, he's going to be like the bird is going to be like pooping on the ground. Just don't let that hit you. If you're in the shroud, it will knock you out of the shroud. But as long as you're moving when it's thrown out, it's probably not going to hit anybody. Another thing to keep in mind here is pretty common. If you shroud here out of the gate and it's quaking, if you get hit by another person's quack, you will actually get broken out of the shroud. And even though they're changing quacking in Season 4, that's not actually going to change how that interaction works. And this happens every single time you do this dungeon, because there's kind of like an internal CD on when you can get quacked. And out of the gate, 3, 2, 1, you're going to shroud. It's always going to quack during that shroud 100% of the time. So if you're ever doing this on quacking, you want to make sure that everybody's kind of spread out, or they're at least ready for it. A lot of times people might actually wait for it to happen and then shroud. But either way, it's perfectly doable without a rogue. Definitely not ideal because you're going to be way over count. There's also some things you can do with the warlock. Apparently, I didn't know this was actually possible, but apparently people have been saying that you could put like a portal somewhere around here, and you could use it to get up to where that orange marker is there, and you could skip all this trash here as well. Just kind of a poor man's rogue, because then you're going to have to deal with potentially pulling other stuff up there anyway. But on the off chance that you're going to pull all of this, this is how it's going to be done. You're going to pull all, there's that poop, by the way. Basically, as soon as you move at all in this dungeon, it's going to start. So you got to be ready if you're shrouding. But anyway, if you are pulling all of this, you definitely want to get a pre-pot in. You're going to mount up and you're going to get them all together. Again, the Corsair is going to be, or the crack shot is going to be the range target. So if you're a fancy blood DK like me, you can grip them all together with Gore Fiends. But if you are doing this, you really want to lust. So a lot of the people who do this regularly, they like doing this on a week where trash is the biggest danger. They want to pull extra there. As you saw, the bone saw did try to heal. That's that heal that I just interrupted. And then there's the enrage you see on the dog. So you can kite a bit, but it's kind of difficult to kite at times. And again, the crack shot is just going to sit back there and do full range damage. So anyway, a lot of times people are going to do this because they feel like lusting on trash is more valuable. They'll kill this, bloodlust, pop everything here and bloodlust here. And it's actually not too bad, if you have everything up. But it's just I don't ever really like it, especially because then it means you're gonna have to pull off a silly skip later. Skipping out of the gate here is number one, the absolute best strategy in any key, if you ask me. And without a rogue, it's gonna be pretty difficult in season 3, pretty much impossible. Using an invis pot, you're not really gonna make it. You need to be able to mount. And the other thing is, when we tested the PTR, there was one of the lieutenants was right here, so it was actually perfect. I don't know if those are random. We haven't decided that yet, but yeah, if there is a lieutenant here, then you basically could skip everything anyway. Because what you would do here, you might oftentimes pull the first pack, but in case you didn't know, you could actually just do this. You can literally just jump down here, and you can kind of just slide down this way here. So. Yeah, you could skip everything there anyway. In fact, a lot of people probably don't know this, but you can actually go this way to the first boss. A lot of people did this in Season 1 based on the placement of the Kahunis or whatever, those little mobs from Infested. So you probably didn't even know this was here, did you, Cup?
No idea.
Yeah, there's literally a second route to the first boss, but almost nobody ever takes it. So also there's a different, it's a similar trash pack, and on teaming, we'll talk about that when we get up there. But on teaming, it's different each week. So anyway, just for the sake of this, we killed this trash. Now what you want to do here next is, you see this Corsair, this pack here with the marks on it? That's a patrol. You really want to swerve that. The easiest way to swerve it is just not, spend a lot of time killing this first pack. Because absolutely, going back and forth while that is happening, you're going to want to make sure it times out well. Because otherwise you're going to be sad here. You really don't want to pull that pack. If you pulled the start here, you're going to be way over count if you pull that as well. But once it's patrolled away, I'm going to show you how to do a nice little trick here. So what you're going to do is let's gotta wait for it to go a little bit further. Anyway, so yeah, once it's gone, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to just run right through these mobs here, just run right through and run to the other side. Hide on this little pillar here, and they will have no chance to actually auto attack you from there. So they will be forced to line of sight. As you see, they're all now together, whereas all 4 of them are ranged mobs. If you didn't do that, if you didn't line of sight there, you would be it would be that unenviable position where you got 4 ranged mobs and you're all trying to attack them while you're trying to move them at the same time. So obviously, again, the crack shot is going to be a pain. The bone saw can heal, and the Corsair just kill it, no big deal. That's if you're pulling all the trash. Like I said, right now, if you do this key, 9 out of 10 times you're bringing a rogue and you're not going to pull any of this stuff that we've just been talking about here. One other thing though, if you do pull this, I should make aware, you can fall off this. You can literally jump off this, and I've seen people do it. In fact, look, I just actually aggroed it by getting too close to it down there. So this is a huge mistake, right? You don't want to do that. We'll kill it for now, as it's not going to impact anything. But there you go. So you've just seen a big mistake that can happen, and if you make this mistake, you're in serious trouble. It's probably going to wipe you, and it might end up depleting your key because people will leave. Usually this dungeon's trash is so easy that if anything goes even remotely wrong, this is like the most volatile dungeon, because if anything even goes remotely wrong, people start getting really uppity. Like way more than any other dungeon. Like you might expect to wipe in like Toldagor or something like that. But wiping in this dungeon, on especially any Tyrannical week, is absolutely devastating, because the bosses in here are very, very dangerous. And we're going to talk about them soon, but they are getting nerfed, so still dealing with this mistake for now. Any questions for
Not yet.
Okay.
Like it's overwhelming a little bit still because of all the different ways that you can do things.
Yeah, realistically, all of the stuff that we've talked about so far is just not going to ever be dealt with, though. Like, even without a rogue in Season 4, I don't think anybody's ever going to pull this trash again. As you see, these Enforcers have a lot of health, and they do a lot of annoying mechanics. There's another one that they just did there, that Brutal Backhand. You are going to have to fight 2 Enforcers right here. Oh, the boss is aggroed. Well, that's awkward. Alright, well, we messed up. Let's try not to aggro the boss again. Anyway, that's because we killed this pack. So, as I was saying, there's actually 2 packs that you can kill to aggro the boss. Oops. Actually 2 packs you can aggro to kill the boss. One is right there at Skull. We actually accidentally aggroed that. And the other one is at green, okay? So, you can pull either of these to get to the boss. But until you kill one of these packs, the boss is not aggroable. He literally cannot be aggroed. So, as you see here, though, if the boss leaves his arena, he resets. So, you might actually get some benefit out of knowing that. Anyway, let's kill this trash bag, because this typically is where, if you're shrouding, this is typically where you start the boss, start the dungeon. So again, 2 enforcers. A little tip I always like to give on my stream is that these mobs, both of them are going to knock you back in a staggered fashion. So the first one knocks you back, the second one knocks you back, then you want to use Bone Storm, because otherwise you're going to get knocked away during Bone Storm, and that's just huge wasted runic power there. As you see, the brutal enforcers do this mechanic called the Backhand Mechanic. It's just going to turn towards a random player and try to slap them, basically. If you get hit by it, you take a lot of physical damage and you get knocked back slightly. Obviously, the knockback's not the end of the world, but as you see, Cop actually took a fair amount of damage, even though it's only a 0. You really got to avoid that. I've seen people legit get one shot in here from these mobs, especially on raging, when the mobs rage. And just be aware that these mobs are not slowable and they are not stunnable. So if you're tanking this and it's necrotic, very difficult to actually kite them there. Now, before we actually pull the boss, I do want to illustrate something here. You see this patrol that I still have marked? This is actually going to patrol all the way up to green. It's going to come all the way up to the pack we have now. So in some odd series of events, you might end up accidentally aggroing this pack. It's not a very dangerous pack, but again, you're going to be overcount. If you pull any of the stuff and make any of the mistakes we made so far, you're going to be overcount. So you just really want to be aware of that. And it's also very possible to pull this trash pack while you're fighting this boss, especially because you're going to use a strategy that I'm going to describe to you now, and it's going to make it very easy to accidentally pull this trash. So you just got to be very careful if if the pack is coming towards you, to not be near it. So let's talk about this first boss here. This boss is extremely dangerous, probably up there with any of the hardest bosses in the game. On the higher you go, the harder it is. It's actually a really easy boss on really low keys. It just scales really badly. It's probably the most notorious fight in the game because the mechanics are extremely punishing. Like, you cannot avoid them unless you do what I'm going to show you today. And if you get hit by them on, like we did last week, we did 19 tyrannical, literally one-shot people, 100% health. Wow. So yeah, pretty nuts. Okay, so this boss has it has 2 phases, but the first part of the fight is going to usually go by so quick because you're going to have pre-pot and bloodlust that you're not really ever going to see it. But while he's on his parrot, he basically, the main thing he does is he's going to charge around, okay? He's going to like charge at a person, and then the mount is going to take him there, okay? So the main mistake that you'll see here when you eventually do things perfectly is that all the ranged are going to be really far away from the boss, and you don't want to do that in phase 1 because then it means the boss is going to travel from one side of the room to the other. Not a good idea during Bloodlust. But you as a melee, you're never going to really have to worry about that. You're just going to see a kind of a gray circle. That's where he's charging. Just move out of that gray circle. That's that. He's still going to shoot his pistol, which is the number 1, the very dangerous mechanic on this fight. But other than that, phase 1 it's just slightly different in that way. Then at, I believe it's 70, he gets off the mount and he starts engaging you properly. And the mount is then part of the encounter. Okay, so at that point, the mount is going to continue to poop on the encounter, just like it happened on the trash up the way on the way here. And it's also going to charge kind of like across the room. So, for example, it might actually land at green. If the boss's parrot lands at green, it's always going to go directly across. So wherever it lands, it's going to go completely through the middle. So it's going to go from green to blue. You know what I mean? Or it might go from over here, green to blue over here. You know what I mean? Just always going to cut through the middle of the room. So if you're doing this perfectly, this should never, ever be an issue. But if you are actually kiting the boss, like you might do in a lower key where it's not super serious, very easy to get hit by this bird. It does a lot of damage. It's a lot of physical damage. But most importantly, listen up, tanks. If you're tanking them on the edge of the room, which you should be, and you get knocked out of the arena by the bird, you better be a freaking genius and get back in mad quick. Otherwise, the boss is going to reset. I've had this happen multiple times. So learn from my mistakes, my friends. I've had this happen multiple times, and it almost always happens because I'll be like kiting from like this direction towards the boss. I'll be over there, and the bird, this tricks me up all the time. If the bird is between here or here, it almost always looks like he's facing one direction that he's not going. Like he'll be like at purple, and it looks like he'll be facing like over towards cop, but he'll actually be going this way. You know what I mean? And I always get hit. I always look at where he is. I'm thinking, oh, he's not going to charge towards me, but I'm not thinking I don't realize he always goes directly through the center. It's not about, and it has nothing to do with where he's facing. So just a little tip for the tanks out there, okay? As DPS, it doesn't matter. You get hit, even if you get knocked out of the portal, knocked out of the area there, you're actually fine. In fact, a lot of ranged are going to just stand outside of the arena the whole time. But you're not going to be able to do that if you do this strategy. So let's talk about like some extremely high meta strategy here, which you're probably never going to actually do. But just in case you ever see it done, this is what you should do. Okay, so you're going to fight the boss right here, okay? I think it might work elsewhere, but I know it works here, okay? What you're going to do is this little, see this thing here? See how I'm stuck on this? You cannot get hit. You can line of sight the boss with this. Even though the boss is still attackable, you will be out of line of sight of him, and he will not be able to hit you with his pistol shot thing, okay? So the boss has to be right here, literally right up against it, and then the melee can be right on the other edge of it, right behind that post, fully attacking, doing full DPS, but you won't be able to get hit by the pistol shot. He'll turn to hit you, but you will be out of line of sight, and you will dodge it, okay? As for melee, for ranged, you just need to be maximum range. So if the boss is right here, you just want to be 40 or whatever, whatever the maximum yardage away from him is that you can be. I think it's like a 30-yard ability. So basically, range would be over at blue, and 100% of the pistol shots that target you will miss you as well. It's a 30-yard range. If you're farther out than 30 yards, you cannot be hit. Okay, so very big. These are huge. These are huge. Now the boss is being nerfed in season 4. The shot mechanic is not going to do as much damage. I think it's like a 30% nerf, so a pretty big nerf, but still it's going to do a lot of freaking damage, like no matter what. So if you're playing a ranged, you want to make sure your maximum range here. Do not take extra damage on this fight if you don't have to. It's very high amounts of damage, and it's tough to heal up in time, especially if you're doing it with a healer who's not 100% ready for it. The other thing that we should talk about here is the poop, all right? From what I've seen, I'm not 100% sure about this, but from what I've seen is wherever the bird is, whoever the closest target is the one he throws it on. So you could actually have somebody bait the poop so it's always on the ranged and never on the melee, making the strategy actually work. Because otherwise, if the bird throws it on us, we have to move. It does a lot of nature damage. So typically, if you're not doing this very complicated strategy, you're just going to see the boss kited around the whole room. So not that big of a deal. You just move when the poop's under you, move, blah, 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 range, adjust. That's that. But again, range will have to watch the patrol, which will be over there, and, obviously be max range. So that's pretty much it. As long as you're not doing like a 20 or something like that, this is probably one of the easier bosses in the game because there's almost no mechanics. So let's kill him.
Gotcha.
Typically, you lust here. This is like, obviously, if you're going to lust on bosses, you want to lust here. A lot of people have been waiting to lust. Early on, before people knew about this crazy strategy, people were waiting to lust. But I don't think that's valuable at all anymore. I think it's just kill the boss as fast as possible now that you could avoid a lot of this mechanics. But as you see, there's the poop. There's only 2 targets, so it's obviously going to pick us every time. And there's the shot. Actually hit Cop for still about 15% of his health, so it's pretty nuts. The only other thing I didn't talk about is that Revitalizing Brew there. You want to snap interrupt that. You want to make sure that gets interrupted the second he interrupts it. Basically, he tries to heal to full. And if he gets even a tick off, it could be a big DPS loss, you know what I mean? To have to kill another 3% of his health or whatever it might end up being. But, as you see, Cop's getting actually hit pretty hard. That poop does a lot of damage. And whenever he shoots the ability, it does a lot. The only other thing is you can think in mind that if you're ever in like a really dire strait, you can actually use that Revitalizing Brew to heal yourself instead. When you interrupt it, he throws it on the ground. So you can legit pick that up and heal the full with that. So, yeah, pretty good. But that's as you see, massive. I mean, it's a lot of damage, even on a 0, right? So
that is a ton of damage.
Yeah, but that's literally it.
Is this... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I just realized I answered my own question. Never mind.
About what?
I was just thinking about. I know that this is one of the dungeons amount drops in, and I was like, "This is the boss that drops him." And I was thinking, "Don't be stupid, Cop. This is a myth. We're talking about Mythic Plus. So you don't get any loot till the end."
Correct. Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, you've now if you killed this fight, you're in good shape. Let's put it that way. That fight is a wall for a lot of keys, and it's gonna get nerfed. So maybe it's not gonna be that bad. But the first part of the dungeon is definitely like I would say it's the hardest part of the dungeon. But now we got to cross the bridge. So there is ways to skip this mob. You might see it done. Basically, a rogue could pull it. Here, let me try it. I'm going to pull it over the side, and you sneak by when I do, okay? So, basically, a rogue would do this. So, yeah, cops could sneak by, and then I could just die. I wonder if I could jump off or something. Anyway, I can just die. Not ideal, obviously. You're not going to do it like this, but, you know, this could actually work. No matter what, anybody can do this. You just need to if you're gonna do this, somebody needs to res, right? This is a pretty, like, we actually talked about this in the Motherload video, so hopefully you guys have seen this. But if you're gonna do this, normally you're gonna have a rogue do it. Rogue's gonna grab the mob and he's gonna pull him over, and he's just gonna whatever, stealth in combat, whatever that's called, vanish. He's gonna vanish, and then everybody's gonna sneak by. So come up and res me. But otherwise, it's just the same mob type as you've seen the whole time, the Enforcer. He's going to throw the tank, and then he's going to turn and do the Backhand Mechanic. At this point, it would be impossible to not have pulled a mob with an Enforcer, so you know what that mob type is. Nothing crazy. But he can be kited. When I'm fighting him, when we actually kill him, I like to just pull him down the bridge kind of slowly, because it's a pretty long bridge, as you see. So, very picturesque dungeon. Oh my god, look at that sunset, though. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Don't know if I've ever been in the dungeon this time of night. Really, really nice.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay, so now this is, I was talking to Cobb about this. This is a very complicated part of the dungeon. The output of it is actually very easy. It's very basic. You're never really going to have to worry about this, but I want to get it 100% right. So there's now 3 like different combinations of things that could happen from now on. And it's going to be based on which boss combo it is this week, quote unquote. The second boss, there's 3 actual bosses. You're always going to only fight 2 of them, okay? And the way you do that is by allying with the third. He's going to buff you in one way, and it's going to make the fight like easier, but really it just changes the fight slightly. So before any of that happens, you're going to want to pull this pack on the right. This is how I always pull it. But we're now talking about a new mob type here, okay? Well, a whole slew of new mob types, but this is the number 1, the Oarsmen, okay? You're also going to have this trapper and its little soggy ship rats coming in, okay? I would definitely avoid pulling both of these 9 times out of 10, but if you're really good, like you got really good DPS, you got all your CDs up, you can just pull all of this stuff together, get a really nice big AoE pack. But not going to do that in most keys, just letting you know. It pats around the center there. There's actually a couple pats of those types of mobs. So let's talk about the Oarsmen. The Oarsman basically is the most dangerous mob in here for the whole group after the stuff we talked about already. He's literally going to do one thing. He's going to cast an ability that's going to put a bunch of little swirls on the ground that if you get hit by them, they deal probably about, it depends on the key level, but probably about 50% of your health in frost damage, and it's going to knock you up in the air. You're going to fall, take more damage, okay? You do not want to let this cast go off. Please promise me that if you ever do this key, Cop, you will interrupt this ability, because it is so unbelievably important, and so many times I do this key and nobody interrupts it, and I have to do it. I have to grip it and stun it and do all kinds of stuff as a DK.
I promise I will interrupt it to the best of my abilities.
Thank you very much, Cop. So just like we talked about in other dungeons, don't grip it, don't stun it, don't do any of that stuff, because you're just going to bait somebody's interrupt and they're going to miss it. It's just literally just one cast that you have to interrupt, and if you don't interrupt it, it's going to be a real problem. And the reason it's going to be a real problem is because if you do fight that rat pack right there, they're going to put roots out. They're going to throw these traps. If you get hit by the traps, you take a bunch of damage. You can break it with things like freedom or shifting in and out of cat form kind of thing. But realistically, you're probably going to get hit by them. And at that point, if he does the knock-up mechanic, you're not going to be able to move out of it either. Like, if you miss the interrupt, it's not the end of the world. You can just move out of it. Nobody's going to do that in most keys, but it is possible. So the way I like to do it is I like to grip, get this guy here as fast as possible, pull the others back. As you see, the duelist is going to do that charge mechanic. If you're in between him and the charge, you will get stunned. There it is there. C-spout. Look at that. Cop got that interrupt. Boom. Spear hand strike. Nice work there, Cop. But anyway, yeah, so you're just going to make sure that you don't get hit by that charge. If you get hit by it, you'll be stunned. That's a much better target to grip and stun to prevent it. And that's that. So typically I would pull all these yellows too. These yellows do actually give count. They don't give a ton, but there's a lot of yellows in this dungeon, and they add up by the end to a lot of count. Like they give I think 0.5% per, so that's just 3% right there. Now typically I'm going to go around the back here. I'm not going to say we're going to do this every week because things are going to be different every week, but typically we're going to go around the back here. We're going to clear this pack down here, okay? And at this point we need to start talking about what's actually happening with the boss. So I have it printed all out. I don't want to make a mistake, so I'm literally just going to read it word for word. And we're going to talk a little bit about why this is important. Because I think actually this might have happened to you, Cop. I think we had done this together one week, and then we came in here again the next week, and you didn't understand that they were different. Because one of them requires all 5 people to do something, and I don't think you understood that. So I'm going to explain this start to finish here, okay? So again, there's 3 bosses here. As you see, Eudora, Raoul, and Jolly, okay? So I'm going to tell you about how Captain Jolly is going to be allied with. Okay, this is not the fight yet. We're not talking about the fight. We're talking about something you need to do before you can pull the fight. But by the way, if you pull with all 3 of those guys up, they have a 100% health increase and 100% damage increase. So you're done. You're not going to even get 1 global off. You're just going to get 1 shot. Okay, so Captain Jolly. Players can find one of the 3 events that will allow them to make the upcoming boss encounter substantially easier. This event changes after each weekly reset. So it rotates. It's not random, it rotates. So one week it's going to be the one, next week it's going to be the next week it's going to be the third, then it's going to go back to the first, then the next, blah, blah, blah. So it's in a pattern. So if you follow the weeks, you do it every week, you'll notice this, okay? Okay. So for Captain Jolly, if players spot the cute pig Murphy, thanks Wowhead for the anecdote on whether the pig is cute or not, they will need to chase him down to get the keys around his neck. So every once in a while you're going to see, I'm sorry, not pig of course, pug. It's a dog. Anyway, I see why they thought it was cute. Anyway, it's a little dog and you need to click him, I believe it's like 5 times. Okay, so it says Murphy will go through several spots, most of which reside in a clump of trash. Make sure to finish 1 trash pack before pulling the next. That's Wowhead's recommendation. We're not going to do that. We're going to have a rogue or a stealthy do this. You can do it in stealth, okay? When it's a dog week, you just have any stealth class can do it. Hunter can also do it, and if they do aggro, they can just feign death and drop threat. But any stealth class can do this, so Druid, meta, very meta right now, and Rogue, very meta right now. One of those 2 should be in your key at all times. You'll have it done. If you have to actually pull this, you're in serious trouble, because you're going to have to, again, go way over count. And you basically, the way it works is the mob would kind of like run like from these packs, kind of like around the whole center. You'd have to pull pretty much 4+ packs to get this done. You don't want to do that. Eventually, Murphy will get tuckered out and fall asleep. At this point, somebody must click him to take his keys. Then you can open the cage holding the NPC, who's going to make you an honorary member of the crew, making Captain Jolly an ally. Okay, so the cage would be right where that training dummy is now, as you see. Let's kill this trash. A lot of the times you're going to skip this trapper pack, but it's not actually that big of a deal. Like, it's fine. It's fine to pull it. You can just skip stuff elsewhere. This dungeon's ending is probably the most unique ending to any dungeon ever. So if you're like slightly ahead on count, not like super ahead, like you didn't pull the whole freaking dungeon that we pulled by accident, but you pulled a couple extra things, that's not a problem at all because it's just going to allow you to end the dungeon sooner. So pulling that pack is fine, is my TLDR there. Anyway, so yeah, so let me put a marker. Right now it's not there because it's a different event this week, but it would be right there, right where that event is happening. Okay. So let's skip Eudora. We're going to go to Raoul, which is the one that we're currently. This is the most straightforward one. This is the easiest one. Captain Raoul. If players spot 2 highlighted black tooth knuckle dusters attacking a target dummy, they need to engage them in combat to begin a brawl. At this point, 4 additional enemies will run towards the group. Once all 6 enemies have been defeated, the group will become honorary members of Captain Raoul's crew, making him an ally in the next encounter. So we're going to fight these now. This is the week it is this week, and it's very easy. These 2 mobs have to die, though. We have had it where we pulled this and wiped and didn't kill these 2 mobs. Well, actually, I think I'm not exactly sure what happened, but let's put it this way. If you wipe on this, your dungeon might bug out. We had it happen a couple weeks ago where the dungeon actually bugged out because we pulled some of, I think actually what happened was you pulled those 2 and they summoned the other 4. So we killed the 2 that we pulled, but the other 4 didn't die. So when we came back, we had no way of aggroing the other 4. Boss could not be progressed. Just a little bug there. I don't think that that should never happen, but just be aware these guys have a cast. It's actually this Scrapper, this Blind Rage. It's going to target a person. Don't let it hit you. And this mob here, the Knuckle Duster, they do a cast that's going to silence you if you're a caster. Make sure you don't get silenced. Just interrupt it or stop casting. But realistically, this is the most straightforward of the 2. Okay, so we have now just allied with Raoul. As you see, Eudora, Jolly are now hostile. and Raoul is our ally. But there's one other. It's Captain Eudora. Okay, this is the one that's really the easiest, but the one that I know tripped you up a while back and probably trips people up. So if you're doing this and it's Eudora week, there's basically 5 people have to prove they drink. Effectively, it's the dumbest thing, but there's gonna be like people they're giving out alcohol throughout the dungeon. One of them is right here. This is the easiest one. Literally all 5 people can just click 1, even though it seems like you need to go to, like, there's 5 throughout the rooms. They're like all over the place, literally all over the place. Maybe they changed that in season 4. I highly doubt it though. But if it continues to work like it does in season 3, there's just a person here. All 5 people have to have the buff at the same time. Something that happens all the time. 4 people get it. 1 person's in no hurry to get it. And then one of those 4 people dies to trash. They lose the buff. They come back, do the trash again, don't realize they don't have the buff. And then everybody's like, oh, what the hell? Why isn't it, somebody didn't drink. So easy way to target your friend. See if he has the buff. If he doesn't, just be like, hey friend, why don't you get the buff? You know what I'm saying? Just in case somebody dies. Happens all the time. All right, but so anyway, that's not the only thing that happens. Once you take one of the bosses out of the encounter, it also takes that mob type out of the encounter. So as you see here, it's tough to actually see it now. The mob should still be there though. Anyway, so the bilge rat is, I believe, I don't actually know the name. See, this is why I don't want to. One of these types of mobs are always removed. Okay, there's 3 types of mobs throughout the rest of the dungeon, and one of them's always removed. But for some reason, if you fight the pack before you kill the Council of Captains fight, it bugs out and they re-aggro. All right, so we might actually see that here. I don't know which mob types are which, sadly. But all I know is sometimes you're going to see some variants here. Oh, there we go. As you see, the Blacktooth. Okay, so that's the one, yeah. They're just the names of them that you would have seen. I don't know. I guess the bilge rat is probably Eudora, I guess. I don't really know. But either way, you'll see it change week to week. You'll fight slightly different mobs each week. And sometimes you'll... The big thing is when you skip the brine scales, because they do a lot of damage. These brine scales do a lot of damage. And as you see, you just saw it there. The Knuckle Duster was originally green. He was originally friendly. But as soon as we aggroed the pack, it's bugged for some reason. If you haven't killed Council of Captains, he will become hostile as well. If you pulled this pack after you kill Council of Captains, you will not have that mob. So if for some reason you're way over count, just try not to pull, don't pull any extra trash. Go right to Council of Captains, and then it'll save you some trash. We're pulling this pack for a very specific reason, though. You might be confused why we're pulling this pack. The number one reason is because it's going to patrol into the fight, effectively. That pack is going to start, put a mark. It's going to start against that pack over there. You see that pack over there? A lot of people might actually try to double up and pull both of those packs with CDs. I don't like to do that. But it's going to patrol right to about here. That's pretty much the aggro range. If you're closer than blue, you'll aggro, okay? And this is a big problem because if you're fighting Eudora, she could jump all over the room, which we'll talk about. But either way, you're going to want to pull that pack probably 9 out of 10. Unless it's not Eudora week. Unless you're allying with Eudora, then you don't have to pull that pack before you pull the boss. But the other reason, this is probably the more important reason you're going to pull that pack there before we fight the boss, is because you want to have Bloodlust for this fight. This is the second hardest fight, probably maybe one of the hardest fights in the game, again, because of the scaling. Again, if you're doing it on a low key, it's very, very easy. If you're doing it on a high key, it's very, very difficult because it's unavoidable physical damage and it's going to do a lot. So just clear this out. Basically, you would the way the route would go is you would lust on the first boss, and then it would take you only about 6 or so minutes to get here. So then you'll clear the rest of the trash leading up to this, including those yellows, which can be pesky. You definitely want to fight those yellows before you fight Eudora. You don't want them on you, especially with some affixes. And again, you're going to see here, Blacktooth Scrappers. These mobs are green currently. That means they're friends, but they're not our friends for long. Watch what happens when we fight the pack. They're going to become... Okay, just edit that part out. No big deal. Anyway, it doesn't. It's bugged. It's bugged. Like I was. Listen, I'm telling you, it's bugged. Okay, it doesn't always work. But anyway, a lot of the times.
I believe you.
Yeah. Anyway, they're gonna be bugged. It doesn't really matter. This is like such an inconsequential thing. I don't know why I'm even talking about it, but just in case every once in a while when you fight these mobs, you're gonna see them aggro, and it's because if you don't pull the Council of Captains, it sometimes bugs out. But anyway, typically what happens here is, in a normal key where everything's going well, we normally have to pull about 5 packs extra before we have lust up. So it would be the pack this patrol that we talked about, this stationary pack, this big guy here, and then the pack over to our right here. So we're going to pull the big guy. Make sure he's by this rock. If he's north of the rock, he will aggro the harpooner when he aggroes. And you don't want that, obviously. You don't want to fight that pack yet. So yeah, just kill this guy. This guy is actually really dangerous. The ground shatter is much bigger mechanic than it looks. As you see, I was actually out of it on my screen, but I still got hit by it. It's a 0, and I'm 451 eye level, so it's not a big problem. But it's going to do a knockback, and it's going to do a lot of freaking damage. So you want to be about maybe 5 yards out further than the animation ending looks, because it will hit you. And then he's occasionally going to throw a rock at a player, which you saw there. If that hits you, it's going to do a lot of damage too. So don't get hit by those things. Again, we're probably... Yeah, there you go. See, it happened that time. The mobs all came back, so we got a pack of 5. If you don't... this a lot of times this is like the swing pack. If you you kill your door before you pull this pack, then you've just lost probably about 3 to 4% count, which is not a problem at all. But again, the Buccaneers, they're going to do this... spinny mechanic. You want to stun that, you want to grip that, you want to ring anything that can stop them. AoE stun, leg sweep, blah blah blah. You can paralyze them as well to stop them. It's going to do a lot of physical damage to anybody near them, going bananas as you see. So there you go, as Cop demonstrated masterfully. He interrupted it. That was excellent. You just want to make sure that's interrupted. And then the knuckle dusters, they're going to need to be interrupted as well, which is a regular interrupt. But that's it. Trash is done now. We're ready to fight Eudora. So let's talk about this boss here. This boss is very, very difficult when Eudora is present. The 1 out of the 3 weeks when Eudora is not present, probably the easiest boss in the game. Really, really, really easy that week. But the 2 other 3 weeks with Eudora present is very, very dangerous. Long story short, she does an unavoidable pistol shot mechanic. Unlike the first boss, cannot be avoided. Doesn't actually do as much damage as the first boss does. But it's also being nerfed. Okay, so again, Season 4, it's being nerfed. If you're not doing like a 20 in Season 3, you're probably never even going to realize this is that dangerous, and it's going to make the fight a lot more evenly dangerous. So long story short, Eudora is the hard target because she's going to jump all around. You're going to see it today here. She's going to jump to basically, here, I'll put some markers. She's going to jump to one of these areas in the room, okay? It's either going to be there, it's either going to be there, it's either going to be there, or it could be over here, okay? Well, it's not actually that far. If she jumps to any of these 4 areas of the room, if she jumps to any of these 4 areas of, wow, okay, I'm messing it all up. Anyway, if she jumps to any of these 4 areas of the room, she has the potential to accidentally do something bad, all right? If she jumps to this side of the room, you might accidentally aggro this trash, okay? That could be bad. If she jumps to, let's just go to blue first. If she jumps to blue, I've seen this happen a lot recently. She might reset, okay? Basically, if anybody has stood on this rock, there's actually a document out there that shows all the different spots that might cause this boss to reset somehow. But if anybody is standing on any of these rocks right here, or basically outside the arena at all, like if you leave and you're in the rum quarter, it will reset. If the boss crosses into the rum quarter, it will reset. So as you see, literally just crossing this little wooden plank here is enough to reset the boss. And she's going to be standing like right here. So hold your breath. This happens to me pretty often. It actually happened to us twice last week when we were doing our 19. Reset 2 different times. The other mechanic the other thing that could happen here is that red or skull, she might jump here and you might get knocked out of the arena. But long story short, probably not going to happen. I'm just letting you guys know. This is as thorough as I can be, okay? All right, so that's Eudora. When she jumps, also, she shoots fire. Very easy to avoid. Just run behind her. If you get hit by it once, it's probably not a problem, okay? Now, Jolly is the guy that I hate because he is very, very, very annoying. And I believed for the longest time his mechanic was bugged. But I think it's fixed now. I haven't seen this happen in a while. But he's basically, he does 2 things. He's either going to charge to a person and he's going to hit a big AoE damage. So whoever gets charged to, make sure you move. But the main mechanic that I hate is he's going to throw this giant I think it's called whirlpool of blades. He's going to throw this blue spherical blade thing out. It's going to rotate. And he needs to get it again. When he gets it again, it goes away. That's how the mechanic's supposed to work. The problem is he's charging all around. So it's going to track to him. It's going to try to get back to him. So for example, if it gets thrown over at red and he's over by blue, it's going to take a while to get back to him. Well, by the time it gets close, he might then jump over to purple. Now, it's going to take even longer to get back to him. He's going to throw a second one out. Now there's going to be 2. This is a big problem because if you get hit by them, you take a big chunk, probably about 30% of your health and nature damage, and it knocks you back. Guess what I've done? Gotten knocked out of the freaking playable surface because of that mechanic. And it is the most frustrating thing in the world because in season 2, he never picked it up. Like, he literally did. It looked like he didn't want it. It was like the blade was like, hey, Jolly, I'm here. And he's like, get out of here, blade. Like, he literally didn't want it. It was right on top of him. He would never take it. And that's a problem because it's really big. So if it's right on top of him, it means it's hitting you. So there was almost no way for him to pick this thing up, it felt like. I think they fixed that. I think it's a lot easier now. I haven't had this happen since season 2. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just letting you know. Big blue circle, don't get hit by it as DPS. Does a ton of damage, not going to complicate your life. If you get hit by it, you might die. Otherwise, if you're the tank, just don't get knocked out of the arena. I'm telling you. Especially when Eudora jumps to skull. If you get knocked into this bar area or behind that table, it resets. Don't let it happen to you. Done it many, many, many times. And then the other boss that we don't have up this week is Raul. He's probably the easiest one to deal with. He only does 2 mechanics again. He's gonna put a barrel over your head, and you're not gonna be able to see. You're not gonna be able to see. You're gonna be like, I can't see. Help me, help me. Somebody's got to break the barrel. They attack it. It's damageable. You just break it. It can also be freedomed off. Really good thing to have a paladin in this dungeon. A lot of cases for paladin utility in this dungeon. You could bubble, bop, or freedom it off. It will go away. Okay. I think you could probably do immunities like Ice Block as well if you have it. And then the other mechanic he does is he slams the ground with his own barrel, and it does probably about a 30, maybe like a 20-yard radius of damage. And every time you get hit, you get knocked back. So if you ever get hit on this fight when it's Raul and Eudora, it means you got hit by an avoidable mechanic. That's the big difference. You should notice that because that does a lot of damage. And if you get hit by even a single tick of that mechanic while Eudora is targeting you with her pistol, lights out, boys. Get a res. So very complicated fight. You're never going to fight all 3 of them at once. So just notice. There's also one other thing. One more thing. 2 out of the 3 weeks. Let's not complicate it. Just 2 out of the 3 weeks. This guy here, this Rummy Mancomb, he's going to throw drinks onto the ground. It's going to be a little gray circle. If it hits you, it buffs you. If it hits the boss, it buffs the boss. I think there's like 3 or 4 different drinks. 3 of them are either haste, crit. Maybe it's just those 2. Maybe just haste and crit. If you get that, it's good. If the boss gets it, it's bad. So you want to try to move the boss with damage healers. You want to get it. And the 3rd one is a dot. You don't want to get that one. And the only way you know is with a weak aura. There must be some way you could tell without the weak aura. I have no idea what it is. I just have a weak aura. It tells you which one it is. So if you don't have the weak aura and you have no idea which one you're picking up, don't even pick it up. And if you're the tanks, don't even let the boss pick them up. But ideally, the dot one will hit the boss. You want to move the bosses on top of the dot one, and you want to have the players away from it. So complicated stuff. Something else I didn't bring up is what the actual allied bosses do. But luckily, it's Raul this week. This is the only one that actually matters. The other 2 don't really do anything, but Raul does something very important. So you're going to see it here. So let's finally kill the boss. It's a complicated fight, but as you see, the Potter shot is on me. That's a very dangerous mechanic. So you always want to target Eudora. Eudora is always your first target. And there you see the cutting surge. That was the charge mechanic. Now Eudora is going to leap away, and she's going to shoot fire damage. AMS it if you are DK, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, get over to him as fast as possible. You see, here's this freaking spinny nightmare. If this hit me right here, I'm going to get knocked out of the arena, and it's going to reset the boss, and I'm going to literally uninstall the game. But luckily, I used Death's Advance to prevent being knocked back. Also, something that we noticed early on in the expansions, the higher the key, the more knockbacks do. Like, they actually knock you back. But here's the main mechanic I want to talk about. That gray circle there. As you see, I'm not actually getting knocked back because it's a 0. Anyway, this gray circle is a DPS increase. A 15% DPS increase. I feel like nobody knows this. Every time I ever do this boss, people are like, literally like posturing. They're like, I can't attack the boss. He's in the gray circle. It's like, dude, you want to stand in that. It's unbelievable how many people don't know that. So if Raul is your partner, if he's your friend, if he's your ally, if you were like him and Cop, best friends, you stand in the mechanic. Look, I get damage. 15%. Cop, stand in it. Come on. He's our friend. There you go. Look at that. 15% more DPS. Don't move out of that freaking mechanic. The amount of times I see people avoid that mechanic is absolutely insane. So when Raul is your friend, the dude is AFK. He's not throwing beers. It's only when the other two are your friend. So if it's Raul, you get the buff from that. If it's not Raul, you get the buff from the bartender. Okay? Got all that?
Yeah.
All right. Very, very easy stuff. I agree. Okay, so anyway, yeah, complicated dungeon, but a lot of the damage is being nerfed, so really, if you did this dungeon most weeks, you probably wouldn't even notice most of this stuff. Okay, so anyway, if you haven't cleared this pack, now you're going to do it. At this point, I like to go over the bridge here. You might not see a lot of people do this. We're going to the last boss third. Let's put it that way. We're going to Harlan Sweetie. We're going to him third. The reason you do that is because that boss basically kills himself, so you really don't need Bloodlust for this. It's a very, very long encounter until you get to 25%. Then he takes like a ton more damage, so he's just going to die. So I like doing this boss without Bloodlust. So you'd lust on the first, the second, and then the shark boss. If for some reason that doesn't happen, then do it whatever route you want. But I really like ending at the shark boss, and we'll talk about why. But for now, we're going to talk about this pack here. The Ravengers, Iron Tide Ravengers. They do a mechanic that, again, kills themselves. You do not interrupt that. Painful motivation. Do not interrupt it. It makes them do more damage. All damage done increased by 45%, but inflicts 3% of the maximum health as damage every 1 second. I'll tell you this right now. On a large key, 3% of their health every 1 second is more damage than you could do in a dream, in your wildest dream. It will literally kill the pack for you. It puts it on, I think, 3 people total in the pack. It will literally kill the pack for you, okay? So never interrupt the Ravagers. Here's another Oarsman. Gotta interrupt that, okay? If we get knocked up in the air, we're gonna die. Sea Spout, blah, interrupted. Stormcaller also does something that you want to interrupt. Don't interrupt Painful Motivation. This means don't use AoE stuns. Anytime the mob is AoE stunned, it cannot kill itself. Don't do that, you know what I mean? These are big mistakes I see made on this trash. This is how you maximize this trash. This is why this dungeon is the easiest in the game, because so much of the trash is so easy to deal with. Okay, we got another pack come in here. Buccaneers, they do a blade barrage. They're gonna follow you. They're gonna do a frontal slash. If you're the tank, stun it. You can't really run. You run really far, maybe it would work, but just stun it. Good time for AoE stuns. Officer also gonna put this dot on you, as you see. Oiled blade, healing received reduced by 75%. Your blood decay, AMS. Just do it randomly. You'll probably avoid him applying it. Otherwise, the healer has to dispel that. Okay, if you're the healer, you have to dispel that mechanic. Tank's not going to be able to be healed. That's the hardest trash pack in the game for the tank. Okay, now at this point, we're not going to pull anything else here. In old routes, we used to pull this pack. Never pull this pack. I'm telling you, don't ever pull this pack. 2 enforcers, 2 stormcallers, 2 mastiffs. Some of the peskiest trash in the dungeon. Don't pull it. Way you avoid it, just hug this. Go behind these cannons. Jump on this cannon here. Cut across this little gold pile here. Pick up a coin or 2. You know, increase your revenue. No big deal. All right, Harlan Sweet, easiest boss in here for sure. Literally kills himself. The only thing you need to do, listen to me right now. The only thing you need to do is not mess up this fire mechanic. He's gonna target people with a fire, like cannon basically, and it's gonna drop fire patches. It's gonna drop 4 fire patches. All right. It's extremely similar to raid type mechanics. It's actually very similar to a fight Tyrant Valari, if anybody remembers that fight. It's going to drop 4 consecutive patches, but the duration of how long it drops is the duration of 2 consecutive applications of it. It's complicated, but what I mean to say is you drop, for example, you could drop 4 or you can just drop 2. So it's on Skull. You have it on Skull. People might move, they might drop it red, they might go to red, they might drop it, they might go to blue, they might drop it, they might go to silver. You just wasted 2 slots, okay? But so here, this is how it should go. You drop it on red, you wait. You drop it on X, right on top of red. Then you move. Then you drop it on blue. Then you wait. Then you drop it on green. Then you leave. By the second time you drop on that marker there, it will still not be on the ground. It'll be obvious once you see it. But just don't run, long story short, don't run like a maniac. It's not dangerous. Just don't drop it on the boss and do not spread it all out. The big problem here, though, is that halfway through the fight, he's going to start applying all of his mechanics to everybody. He's going to do it multiple times. So at that point, 4 people are going to get this fire mechanic. It's always going to be on you as DPS. Every single time it goes out at this point. The first time, it's only going to be on 1. 50% and under, it's going to be on every single person. The way you do it then, you drop it all on one side. So everybody, the boss is tanked at skull. Everybody kites from skull to red in a line, okay? Then I move the boss over here. The next set of mechanics, you drop from blue, take it to green, okay? Again, in a straight line, not side to side. Never, ever go from blue to skull, skull to blue. Never go in that direction. You're going to run side to side. By the time blue's fire is down, skulls will be gone. So you move back and forth every time. Very, very easy. Easiest fight in the game. We got people who 2 years later still don't know how to do this fight. It's unbelievable. If we got 4 people all spread out and they're all running around in circles dropping this fire, you literally have nowhere to stand. If I'm tanking, I don't even care. I'm standing in the fire. You guys are on your own. Do the fight right. I'm not going to deal with that. It's the most frustrating thing because the other mechanic is a knockback. You can't really avoid it. It's a mechanic on the fight, but it does almost nothing. But I cannot get knocked back here. I can't actually get knocked off this. So this is where I'm going to tank the fight the whole time. And you're probably going to stand here too, just so you don't get knocked away from the boss. Don't worry about that part, but either way, that's why you want to tank him on this little plank here. A lot of people might want to tank him in the middle of the room. They can't because of the trash. You don't want to tank him there anyway. Even if that was clear, you still wouldn't want to tank him there. Okay? So this is where you always want to fight this boss. All right, anyway, let's kill him. But yeah, and then sub 25%, he does I think it's 50% more damage. Nothing crazy. Just he's going to hit you harder and you're going to hit him way harder. So that's the time you want to save CDs. If you have a trinket that is like an execute trinket, you want to save it for that. You want to wait until he's casted the ability though. He goes from 25, at 25 he starts the cast, and then once he finishes the cast, he's going to, so there you go, so yeah, perfect. See, that's exactly how you want to do it. I think you did get hit by a little bit of 1, but that's exactly how you want to do it. 2 puddles, he actually only dropped 1, so that was even better than most people would do. Anyway, so now it's 50%. Now he's going to target both of us. As you see, he's going to cast an ability. Maybe he doesn't even cast anything here. Yeah, loaded dice, all hands. He's still only putting on you for some reason. But anyway, so at this point, it's normally on everybody. So just keep that in mind. It's going to start, basically, the mechanics are going to happen to everybody instead of just to one person. Oh, also, there's an ad that spawns. It's so inconsequential that I literally didn't even think to bring it up. And there's the other one. Loaded dice, Manowar. Attack speed increased by 100%. All damage taken increased by 100%. So there you go. So this is where you would normally want to go nuts. If you have some type of execute, though, just be aware that he doesn't actually take 100% more damage until he finishes the channel. So this actually happens all the time with spore pods. Oh, I got that's right. Nice. You got a key. Congrats, bro. What is it? A 4? All right, it's a 6. Anyway,
6.
Yeah, this ink pod trinket is actually, if you're still using this in the future, below 30% health. Actually, I guess it must be 30 that he does it. So I'm not really sure. Oh, no, above 30% health. I don't know. Anyway, basically, you want to just wait until he finishes the channel and then push him, because then the ink pod's going to do 100% more damage, so... Anyway, at this point, you're just going to hop over those barrels there. I always get stuck for some reason. Must have something to do with an orc, because I never see anybody else get stuck. And then you're going to come around here. Now, in Season 2...
I always get stuck on everything.
Yeah. But you're a panda. That makes sense. Now, in Season 2, I like to go straight through here. You pull this pack, and then the crusher, and then you're going in there. But... I haven't been doing that in Season 3 because there's almost always an emissary in one of these packs, and it's just a lot easier to go this way. I don't really know what Season 4 is going to look like, but it doesn't really matter. At this point, you're in a very good position on count. You can mix and match whatever you want. So let's not pull that pack. But you can mix and match whatever you want, and you're going to be under count before the last boss is pulled. This is a very fortuitous situation to be in, because it allows you to then pull exactly what you want and not go over count. So we're going to talk about that, because that's probably one of the most important things about Freehold, and probably the reason it's so easy, honestly. But before we do that, I just want to talk about this patrol here. You really want to, if you're going to go this way, you really want to swerve this patrol. So even though it's suboptimal to pull these 2 packs together, if you're in a situation here where it's like, okay, that first pack is about to die as the patrol is coming back, just pull it. Don't wait. You know what I mean? Because then you're going to be sat here for 30 plus seconds waiting for that to patrol. That's if you go this way. In Season 3, you're not going to go this way because there's going to be emissaries there all the time. You can skip that pack when it's at this end of the apex. When it's up there, you can skip it. But it's a lot easier to skip it when it's at this end of the apex. Basically, you have to make sure that it's still going that way. Once it stops, it's going to turn around really quick. So just get by it really quick. Okay, so now we are into the Ring of Budi. All right, very comical little area here. Very famous little area as well, because there's about, I think it's almost 2 minutes of RP. No matter what you do, you cannot, well, there's some small optimizations, but 90% of it is going to be dealt with. You're not going to be able to skip it in any way, okay? So the way that people do optimize this is they have a stealthy come here and start the RP. As soon as you talk to this guy, it starts the first, there's 3 RPs. It starts the first RP. So basically, a stealthy comes here, gets this, and then goes back to Harlan. That's normally how people would deal with it. If you have a rogue or a druid, somebody can come and do that. It's kind of a big deal, actually. And I'm going to show you why. It's not the end of the world if nobody does it. And it's definitely not worth doing it if you're looking to make a big pull out of the gate across the bridge. Because having only 4 players for that is not good. But if you can, route for it, you should do this. This is actually a pretty good time saver. As you see, it takes 45 seconds. That's a long time. That's a lot of time wasted. So yeah, having somebody do this now is not a bad idea. But I'm going to show you why this is a big idea. We're going to have to sit here and wait for a little bit. But this is a very interesting little thing here. Basically, once the RP is done, it's going to summon a pig. Like, we have to pass 3 trials to get through this, okay? The first trial is collect a pig. Pretty crazy, but that's what it is. The second trial is kill a turtle who is not a boss. It's trash. Technically, it's fortified. And then the third one is kill the shark boss, okay? So the first one is actually potentially the biggest time waster. Because if people don't do this right... So you see this pig running all around. It's meant to be difficult to get. But check this out. The longer the pig is active, the longer... that doesn't actually show up. But anyway, I was targeting the mob, but it doesn't show up. Anyway, the longer the pig is active... Don't click it. Damn it. All right, don't click it. The longer the pig is active, the slower it gets. So basically, you would have a rogue come here, start the RP, and then when you get back here, the pig would literally be standing still. He wouldn't be able to move at all. So we're going to watch that happen. And that sounds like it's cool. Like it's, oh good, you just click it. It's easier now. You don't have to chase it around. But it's actually a much bigger deal than people realize. Because just like if you did Shadowpan Monastery Mythic challenge mode, when you had to click this spirit, you needed to click 4 spirits at a time. If all 4 people started the channel at the same time, it would give you 4 of 4 on 1 spirit. So, just like that, 5 people start the pig. 1, 2, 3, click. Pig, 5 of 5 without moving. That is huge, 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 huge. That is absolutely massive, and almost nobody does it. People constantly get here, and then they just click the pig immediately. So what you want to do as a tank is you want to do a short countdown. You don't want to waste too much time here. It's not that valuable. But no matter what, if somebody starts the RP and then leaves, by the time you get here, the pig will just be standing still. Do a couple second countdown, even if it's only 2 seconds. Have people click on 0. All 5 people click at once. Blah. And that's it. Pig's gone. Literally 5 people. We're not going to be able to replicate it here. But as you see, he's getting so slow. I mean, we don't really need to replicate it. But actually, yeah, I guess we can let's just wait a little bit. Before we do that, let's talk about the trash, okay? So just fast forward, pretend we've done all this while we're waiting here so we're not killing time. While we're waiting, there's going to be a lot of trash needed at this point still. You're usually at about 80-some%, okay? Now, the turtle that we're going to fight is going to give, I think, about 2.5%, okay? He's actually up there. Ludwig von Tortolen, that's him there. He gives a couple percent. Maybe it's 1.5%, 2%. I don't really know. But just be aware that you want to have about 1 to 2% left before you kill that guy, and then he's going to end the trash, okay? What I like to do is I like to pull this big guy here, Iron-Tide Crusher, and then one of these small yellow packs. Again, these yellow mobs give about 0.5% each. So that's really about 4-ish free percent. So I'm going to D&D here. I'm going to pull this, okay? Watch out for Sanguine, for Bolstering, for things like that. Explosive, Necrotic. These mobs can actually be relatively dangerous. But, yeah, I would always pull some of these yellows. These are very, very free count, okay? Again, dodge the ground shatter. Move farther than you think you have to. And just dodge when he throws the rock. Now, the reason we're doing this now is actually kind of important. Because you have so much downtime in this little event that you want to be pulling trash while you have the downtime. Typically, you would do it after the pig. We're gonna do the pig now. But Right now, we just do it. Doesn't really matter. Whenever you have downtime, pull trash. DBM is going to show you exactly how much downtime you have and use that downtime to pull trash, okay? So basically, what we're going to do here is at 0, both you and I are going to click the pig, okay? He ran away. All right, there you go. So either way, we got 2 out of the 4, and you're just going to have to continue to chase him because there's only 2 of us. But if all 5 people did it at once, it's done. It's over. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that because it's pretty important. Now we have another 30 seconds, so we're going to pull another pack of trash, okay? And again, just get any type of count you can get during this time. This is actually the shortest time here. There's only, what was it, only 15 seconds between or something. So that's not the big one, but after this is the big one. So Ludwig von Tortolan is actually more dangerous than you think. He's got a ton of health for a trash mob. Cannot be skipped or nothing like that. You got to kill him. Raging is a real problem on him. You got to make sure you de-enrage him. And Fortified is obviously making him harder than not. So on a Fortified week, I'm going to use CDs on this dude because I think he's actually more dangerous than the boss on Fortified. On Tyrannical, you're going to save it. Okay, so we're just going to kill him. He's got pretty much only 1 mechanic. He's going to shoot these turtle shells out. If you get hit by them, they will knock you back and deal a bunch of damage. Here it is. They're going to just be, like, the longer this takes, the more turtle shells there's going to be. And it's actually a pretty big problem because I'm going to show you this now. If you get knocked out of the arena here, as you see, it's not happening for some. Oh, there we go. Okay, if you're out of the arena, you have a 75% chance to miss. Not good. Also, he resets, obviously. That should be clear, right? I think anytime you move a mob out of the arena, he's going to reset. But it's usually not going to happen as a tank. But either way, if you get knocked out as a damage dealer cop, it's very common that this happens. If you get knocked up onto those those wooden, like, kind of pillars or whatever, that lattice of wood there, you're going to get crushed. The mobs, like these NPCs up here, are going to throw a banana at you. It's going to do a ton of damage, and it's going to make you pretty much ineffective for the next however long it lasts. So you want to kind of tank him right here. You don't want to get him any closer to the fence than this because if somebody does get hit right here, you won't actually get knocked out of the arena. You know what I mean? Like, you definitely will be fine. But if you tank them right against this wall, this happens all the time. In fact, I've had people literally get hit, like, right here. Yeah, as you see, I'm only, like, 5 yards into this, but I'm still getting hit by those bananas. So, pretty big deal. So now we have 30 seconds. Now we're going to clear more trash. At this point, you should be done with count. If you're not done with count at this point, then you probably pulled somehow way too little along the way. This is usually the last pack I like to fight. But on, like, a teaming week, you might have to change some things. We might also pull that pack across from us here with the knife jugglers and stuff. But realistically, we're never going to fight that pack. Very unlikely. We'll see what happens in Season 4, though. Things are going to change, obviously. But right now in Season 2, you almost never fight this stuff just because the emissaries give so much count. But either way, this is why the end of the dungeon is awesome. Because you can literally pick and choose what you want. If you only need 1 count, then you kill that knife juggler over there. If you need, like, 5 count, you just go kill that crusher. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of options. So here we are on Trothak, that's the name. This is definitely a lust boss because it's a very beefy encounter. He's got a lot of mechanics that are going to force you to move. So you really want to maximize the first 30 seconds of the fight. But this is actually a very easy encounter. It's just numerically demanding, okay? The only mechanic that you're probably ever going to have to worry about is the sharks. The sharks are he's literally going to throw a shark out. It's going to land, and it's going to track the closest person to that shark, okay? So ideally, you're going to have your healer, or at least some kind of range, be the closest person, and it's going to follow them around. If you get hit by the shark, it's going to chomp you every second, all right? It doesn't just hit once and go away. It chomps constantly. So the closer, every time you're close to the shark, if you're getting hit, you're probably going to die after a few seconds. Don't let it hit you. It is nature damage, though. So if you're a Death Knight, you get AMS, you won't take damage. But the way you deal with it is there's like red pools on the ground. You run the shark through those pools, then the shark gets stuck, okay? Ideally, that will happen without your interference. Cop, you should never have to deal with this mechanic. But if you have a lot of ranged, or if you have very few ranged, it's very likely that he's going to throw it near you, and it might come to melee. So if you ever see the shark right under the boss, just move. You're going to have to move. Unless it's a really low key, you do not want to take that damage. The boss eventually picks up the shark, so he's going to usually charge to the shark to get it, which might be complicated DPS-wise, but if it's right under the boss, he's not going to move at all. Doesn't mean he's going to get it immediately, though. If the shark is taken to the boss, it does not mean he's going to take the shark immediately. He still only does it so often. The only other mechanic on the fight, he does a whirlwind. That's it. Every once in a while, he does a whirlwind, does a ton of physical damage. If you have a defensive, you probably want to stay in, because he's going to do this a lot. He's going to throw the shark, jump to the shark, and do this whirlwind, meaning about maybe upwards of 50% of the encounter, you're going to be moving away from the boss. Not ideal. That's why you really want to lust here, get this boss killed as fast as possible. So that's pretty much it. Let's kill him, and we'll see some of these mechanics, but definitely, since this isn't actually the last boss of the dungeon, it's a very mechanically, light fight. As you see, there's the chum. He's going to throw the shark out soon. And it's going to go out on one of us, obviously. There you go. Shark toss on cop. So as you see, it's going to chase the closest person. So you actually did something that you don't want to do there. You rolled away from it. That doesn't help. It's just going to go to another melee. And now it's never going to get out. You know what I mean? So you want to slowly walk it away. And now there's 2 out, you know what I mean? So basically you want a range to deal with this. It should always target a player. Hopefully it'll target a range and you'll be in good shape. But otherwise, if it's stuck in melee, just kind of back away for a couple seconds. Let it get out of melee. And that's that. But for me, if it's ever on me, this is a good thing. I'm just literally going to AMS. It's not going to do any damage to me. And it's just going to sit here for a while. As long as it doesn't then go to cop, you should be good. But you see this tornado, like the first set with Lust is still going to be up. You really just want to use a defensive there and just stay in, because it's such a big DPS loss to have to run away from that. Outlaw Rogues, they have a longer attack range with the talent, so they can actually attack even though they're outside of that whirlwind. They can still auto attack, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, that's Freehold. Actually, probably the easiest dungeon in the game. It has the potential to be very, very difficult on some weeks, but any non-tyrannical week, this is definitely the easiest dungeon in the game. So what'd you think?
Nice. It makes a lot more sense now. The biggest thing that had always kind of confused me was the 3 boss thing and pathing.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot more sense to see it like this.
I really like going right here, and that's probably what you mean by pathing. It's probably confusing to go to the last boss third, but it just lines up really well with Bloodlust, and it's so easy to skip the trash up here that it's not, I don't see like any detriment to doing it. But a lot of the times you do this, you might not do this. Like, just be aware, it's not a problem if you don't do this, okay? It's fine. But I prefer this because it means Lust is up for the shark instead. Lusting on this boss just seems like a huge waste of time because the boss is so freaking easy and he kills himself eventually. So another thing that maybe we should just talk about real quick is that you can actually skip this trash. If you put a gateway, I believe right here, you could use that gateway to get up to there and you'll skip it. The problem is this little pillar here is line of sight. So there's actually an extremely narrow margin. Like if you stand on purple, you'll realize it is not in line of sight of blue. So it has to be perfect and you have to click it perfectly too. Like if the portal is on purple, I have to like approach it from this angle. So it'll kind of take my character that direction instead of the other direction. So it's a little bit easier to just clear this pack that would be standing here instead and just put the gateway right here instead. And then you can go up without any issue. But you don't really need to skip that pack. Like that's unlikely that you're going to need to do that. So, but anyway, that's Freehold. Like I said, easiest dungeon in the game most weeks. It's been nerfed a couple times, or like been made harder a couple times. But they are nerfing the bosses, the real problem in here. So I think next season this is definitely just going to reign supreme. As you see this key, it's a good key, you know.
Nice.
All right, so
there's a lot of choice for movement and a lot of choice for count. And
yeah, that's the thing that's really nice about this dungeon. There is a ton of choice for count. If you pulled every single, I mean, let's take a look real quick. There is so much trash in this dungeon, dude. If you pulled every single trash pack in here, you would be so freaking, you'd be 200% count. It's just like Motherload. Look, like I bet people don't even know you can come up here. Like nobody would ever come up here for any freaking reason. But there's all kinds of trash up here. Look at this. Literally all the way up here. There's like another 3-4 packs up here. It's unbelievable. There's a mob over here. There's mobs over here. It's crazy. Nobody would ever come up here. I mean, you could literally be up here RPing and nobody would even know you were in the dungeon. You know what I mean? If I literally came up here, I might have to do it. I might have to just join a group and just come do this part of the dungeon and see what people say, because I think this is probably the first time anybody has ever fought any of this trash up here. I might have to do it just for the lulz.
I was stuck in the tree for a second.
Yeah, don't get stuck in the tree. All right. So anyway, that's it for y'all. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, congratulations on the easiest key out of the 10.
Absolutely.